This video is going to give us an overview of our comma rules. So keep in mind, overview, we're not going to go too deep into any one comma rule, but it is just going to give us an overview of the four main ways that commas are used, and take a moment to sort of like unlearn the pause. And what I mean by unlearn the pause is that I think that as speakers of English, a lot of us and readers were taught that when we see that comma in writing, we're supposed to naturally take a pause. And while that might be true for reading something aloud, it's not tied to any grammar rule. We don't put them into our writing because there should be a pause there. We put them into our writing because of the four main rules I was just talking about. So unlearning that, oh, it sounds like a good place for a pause and that you need to have a comma there will be really, really helpful as we get a better understanding of this piece of punctuation. So let's begin with one of the more simple ways, or rather simpler ways to use a comma. So it'd be our list. So you can use commas to separate items in a series. And, we can use it in simple lists, like I went to the store and bought bananas, ice cream, and milk. Kind of weird combo. Or it can be used for more complex lists, like I enjoy running in the fall, skiing in the winter, and riding my bike in the summer. So sometimes those lists are bigger. Sometimes they're as simple as, 1 to 2 words. And we also have the list of coordinate adjectives. There's a video on that if you don't know quite what that means, and it goes a little bit more into depth. So that would be, the happy, friendly dog stopped by. So that's listing 2 adjectives of equal importance. Again, if you want to know why those are of equal importance, then check out the coordinate adjectives video. So our first way is a list. The second way that we can use commas is for compound sentences. Compound sentence means we have 2 independent clauses joined by a comma and conjunction. Joined. And our conjunctions are also known as our fanboys, which I've gone over in our comma splice video. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So that's our acronym to help us remember. I went to the store, comma, conjunction, I forgot my list. So, independent clause, comma, conjunction, independent clause. So, we've used them in a list, used a comma and a compound sentence. Then, another way to use a comma is for introductory elements. And this is a really broad term. And a lot of times I like to think of it as, a dependent clause before an independent clause. Before we get started, please grab a name tag. So this is a dependent clause because of that word right here before we get started. And then our independent clause, please grab a name tag. So DC, comma, independent clause. If those were swapped, then we wouldn't need the comma. So that's why it's important that it's the introductory element, because it comes first. Then this one is what I believe to be one of the trickier ones, and that is for non-essential apositives, slash, I call them non-essential or non-restricted interrupters. And again, this is a very quick overview, but that could be when you're renaming a noun that's already in the sentence. So Sarah, my youngest sister, is only 17. So this would mean if it's an apositive or an interrupter that's non-essential, that the sentence does not need it to be an independent clause. So if we took it out, Sarah is only 17, that would still work. The apositive part of it means that it is repeating something else in the sentence. An example of an interrupter is something that interrupts the flow of the sentence but isn't required. So, you could have a word like however at the beginning of a sentence. And however, the day ended up being beautiful. So this interrupts the flow of the sentence. It's not essential, so we'd have a comma there. If we took it out, sentence would totally still work. And that is where we do see that sort of like natural pause, and we're like, oh yeah, I do pause there. But we don't put it there because it's a pause. We put it there because it's a non-essential interrupter. We don't need it, and it interrupts the flow of the sentence. Without it, this part is one of our independent clauses. So again, this is not touched base on every single thing, but this is the 4 main ways that we use commas. Other ways that we are used to seeing them is introducing dialogue, which oftentimes comes in the category of apositives, or rather interrupters. But if we're looking at commas and we understand the basic sense of how to use apositives and interrupters, our introductory elements, a compound sentence, and a list, then you have commas essentially covered.